Move on to another issue, ladies and gentlemen. This is in Bangladesh. On a day when the acting head of the Bangladesh regime currently, Muhammad Yunus, a Nobel laureate, says that Bharat should look beyond the narrative of everyone but Sheikh Hasina is an Islamist, and also said that most of the persecution is political violence and not communal, and it's being exaggerated. A Hindu boy was beaten, lynched by radical Islamist mob in Khulna over an alleged blasphemy social media post. The cops and army personnel remained mute spectators. They were present there. Utsab Mandal faced violent Islamist wrath over the allegations that he insulted the Prophet on social media. This horror unfolded on the 4th of September. So, is this not persecution? Or is it just exaggerated? And this is after the Western media denial, where the Bangladesh interim government head toes this entire same line, and he calls the attacks on Hindus exaggerated. Attacks more political than communal is what he has said. Hindol Sen Gupta, author, commentator with us, and also Anand Ranganathan stays on with us. Namaste and Jai Hind to the gentleman again. Hindol Sen Gupta, all exaggerated Hindol. So lynching in Bangladesh is not lynching.
2 or 3 lessons here, Anand, which absolutely needs to be learned. Essentially, what is happening is that the Indian subcontinent will descend into this kind of horror again and again. I have no doubt, as I have written in my latest column, I have no doubt that this is the beginning of the Pakistanization of Bangladesh. This has been happening for a long time. Many people may have forgotten, but I have not forgotten the horrible murders of the atheists that happened in Bangladesh. And that the same guys who did this sort of thing are now back. In fact, one radical party is in fact part of Muhammad Yunus's interim government. One more party, one more radical group, the Hizb ut-Tahrir, which was actually behind the famous, you will remember, Anand, the famous or the infamous, should I say, Holy Bakery terror attack. They are actually, Sheikh Hasina had put up 2 statuettes of the 2 policemen who died fighting those terrorists. Those statues have been broken down, and Hizb ut-Tahrir posters have come up in their place. In fact, Hizb ut-Tahrir now organizes marches and rallies from the main mosque in Dhaka across Dhaka streets. This is going to happen more and more. In fact, what is going to happen now in Bangladesh is this will go on in a low boil. So that's, road by road, community by community, steadily the Hindu community is eroded more and more and more. I have absolutely no doubt between the Jamaat and the Hifazat-e-Islam and the Al-Qaeda inspired, groups that have emerged in Bangladesh and the Hizb ut-Tahrir, they want a complete Islamization of Bangladesh. Remember, at this point in time, even as Muhammad Yunus is saying that this is all, India essentially making up things, the biggest debate in Bangladesh has been started by the Islamists saying that the national anthem needs to be changed. This is not a good enough national anthem for an Islamist state. So this is going to radically change the face of Bangladesh. And there is no doubt in my mind that this will happen. I want to put one thing to you. Many people say that, these things happen in India too. We never say that these things happen in India because of what people see happening in Pakistan and Bangladesh. Whereas when something happens in Bangladesh, the Bangladeshis quickly turn towards India and says, because Muslims are ill-treated in India, that's why things are happening in Bangladesh. Actually, I would like to put the argument that this has been happening for decades in Pakistan and Bangladesh, and therefore certain kind of pushback is happening in India too. And if this happens and this gets, this flares up even further, we will see a complete fall of any kind of civic, sense of responsibility. We will descend into greater anarchy. Already you have seen this horrible case of a bunch of quote-unquote Gaurakshaks in India chasing down a boy and killing him. I would argue that this is a result of decades of illicit cow smuggling or cattle smuggling that has been happening from India to Bangladesh. Everybody knows this. The statistics are clear. So therefore, we cannot go down this competitive route anymore. And we have many things. I was looking at your
Right.
Himachal Pradesh story before this. These signs are very, very ominous. I think Anand Ranganathan was saying that in Jharkhand, in certain schools,
Yeah.
now the holiday has changed to Friday. These are very ominous signs. I fear, and I
It's
want to
not
put this
just
on your
Jharkhand,
show
Hindol.
today.
I'm
I fear
interrupting
there will
you.
be a descent.
It's not
This will
Jharkhand. It's
descend into
happening in
greater
Bihar.
chaos.
We have done a story
Imagine.
here in October last year. We followed this up and we investigated it, that there are at least about 10 to 12 districts in Bihar, if not more, where a huge number of schools have self-certified themselves to be Urdu schools, self-certified themselves, and there is a huge demand in a lot of these areas and districts that majority of us prefer Friday to be off, so you give Fridays off. They are forcing schools to say
And in
not Sunday
Bengal,
but
of
Fridays
course,
off.
And in Bengal, of course, there are parts of Bengal where the Islamists have a problem with Saraswati Puja, Durga Puja, all kind of things, especially in the border areas. So we are going down a very dark path, Anand. We should be absolutely clear. What is happening in India, in Bangladesh, in Pakistan will have a reaction. And that reaction is not going to be good. So we are really going down a dark path. I think the minister who was talking to you right now, if he can actually apply what he was talking about, get proper laws in to target these things. And I think the Himanta Biswa Sarma example is also a good one. Use effective laws to counter this now. Otherwise, we are going
Sir,
down
the
a
laws
very
are in
dark
place,
path.
they are not being implemented. The fact is we get lost in the polity. But what about the local administrations? What about the local collectors, the local SPs? They are supposed to be custodians of law and order and also ensuring. Look at the level of illegal encroachments that are happening on the river banks right in our neighborhood. It is happening all over the place. Are you saying the local administration is not aware and they don't see it? They don't stop it? How did a five-story structure come there if the official right under the very nose of these officials? These are all questions that we have to ask. But in terms of Bangladesh, there is a denial, and more importantly, seems to be a tacit backing of this denial in the Western media. There are NGOs which are trying to say blame it on India, and trying to portray 3 or 4 pictures and say, look, this is the norm. The culling of Hindus or the chasing of their Hindus, the genocide there, and the lynching, etc., are all exceptions. Anand Ranganathan.
I have a couple of things to say here, and I agree with what Hindol talks about the demographic change and the scare it's going to bring in, and it's irreversible, as we were just discussing, Anand. But couple of points here that are very important. Number one, the fact of the matter is I can give a lot of data, but data is totally useless right now. Data like the Hindu population of Bangladesh or East Pakistan was 25%, and today it is 7%. Even Bangladeshi academics are saying in 30 years there'll be no Hindus left, so on and so forth. I can rattle out the data about the refugees, the attacks that have happened, but I'm not going to do that. I can blame Muhammad Yunus. I'm not going to do that, because I'm going to apply here what I call the Anderson razor. Anderson razor is that Warren Anderson, the butcher of Bhopal, I don't blame him for escaping in the middle of the night. That is what criminals do. Whatever Yunus popped up puppet is doing, that is what his job is. The job of the army, the job of the Jamaat-e-Islami, the job of the army and all these people, Islamists and jihadis, is doing exactly what their job is. I blame the people who took Anderson in a blue ambassador in the middle of the night onto the tarmac, put him onto the chartered plane, and there he was gone forever. I blame Rajiv Gandhi, I blame them. So I am not going to blame Bangladeshis here. I am going to blame Narendra Modi. I am going to blame this government. 50 vice chancellors and teachers, eminent personalities, Hindu, have been forced to resign in Bangladesh in the last 2 weeks. What has our government done? Do we have even detention camps on this side of the border? You have tens of thousands of harried Hindus running away from certain death and standing in chest-high waters of Teesta, waiting to be let in. Have we at least made some camps there so they can be given some temporary relief? We haven't done anything. When will we stop cursing Bangladesh and start cursing ourselves? And I will tell you this, I don't care about any other country that does these things for Hindus. The only place right now in the world where Hindus are relatively safe, and I agree with Hindol, we are relatively safe in India. For how long, we don't know.
No,
but at least in India, we are relatively safe. What
no,
are we
no,
doing about
there
it?
are 1.3 crore. There are 1.3 crore Hindus in Bangladesh. They choose to live in Bangladesh, and they're very proud Bangladeshi. There are a few thousand, and if not more, who are wanting to flee because of persecution. So should India open its doors? Because we do not have a right to return policy like Israel has for Jews. We are not a nation like that. No, but where are you going to accommodate them? We are already a population of 140 crore. And are we then, is it a stated position of our country that we are going to be the Hiteshi of Hindus worldwide? Are we taking that position? Are you trying to say that's the position we're taking? And the other thing is, it's a country, it's a sovereign nation whose interest, now you see the Chinese envoy has already gone ahead and parked himself at the Jamaat headquarters. We put out those visuals here. So yes, what are you going to say? By taking a position like this, are you going to alienate an important, critical, strategically important neighbor?
Now, one difference here is that Hindus from anywhere else from the world who want to come, as opposed to Hindus from the places that have a historical significance where we had the division. That is what the CAA was all about.
No, but the CAA has a capping of 31st December 2014. That's nearly a decade before. These people don't even come under the ambit of the CAA, sir. And this government took until the fag end of 2023 or the early 2024 to even notify the rules for somebody who would have already legally completed the requirement of 7 to 10 years of stay in our country to become a citizen. So what CAA Amendment Act are we talking about?
So the situation is catastrophic. If we do, otherwise we close our eyes. We say you are Bangladeshis. We don't care whether you're Hindus or any other thing. Otherwise we can do that. But should we do that? That's the question.
See,
when we can get in 40,000 Rohingya Muslims, we are not even getting in a few thousand Bangladeshi Hindus who are facing certain death.
See, then that is something that the state has to decide what its policy is going to be, and then they have to walk that path clear. There is not even an amendment in process which says that let's advance this date or revise this date from 31st of December 2014 to 31st of December 2024. That's also not happened. How many citizens have got citizenship? How many people have got citizenship under CAA Act 2019? Handful. You can count them on our fingers. Are you saying that's the number of people who have fled persecution from West Pakistan and also from Pakistan and from Bangladesh? Hindol Sen Gupta. So is that the solution here? Or do we out and expose the UN Secretary General, the UN Human Rights Commission, the who's who from the Western world, who at the drop of a hat and one stray instance, 27 crore Muslims in our country, one instance happens and everybody is headlining it. Look at the number of instances, at least 15,000 such cases, if not more, displaced people. Nearly 1,000 families on record. Nearly 30 districts out of 64, which have seen targeted incidences against Hindus. How many of these people who come and lampoon India, sermonize India, chastise Bharat, have said a single word about Bangladesh?
And even that Gaurav,
there are two things to note here, Anand. One, of course, is, let's take your first question first. Should India be a country which becomes the refuge, the place of last refuge for despairing Hindus around the world, no matter what that quantity or number of Hindus? My apologies. The answer is yes. The answer has to be yes. There is no other answer. The answer has to be yes. We must have the moral fortitude and courage to say, yes, we are a majority Hindu country. And if we don't stand up for despairing, beleaguered Hindus around the world, who will? And because we don't have the moral courage to say this clearly, we are always in trouble. The problem is that we don't have a spine to say this. That's number one. Number two, there's a geopolitical angle to this. Please understand, the Americans clearly do not want. China has been flooding the Bangladeshi army with armaments. The Americans are worried. They want to ensure that China stays away from the Bay of Bengal. That's probably not going to happen because China already has sold submarines to Bangladesh and so on and so forth. So there's going to be a big tussle. There's going to be a big war for the Bay of Bengal, which India always thought of as its own backwaters. It's no longer our backwaters. So the things are going to get far more murkier and far more complicated in the days and months to come. There's going to be more trouble ahead. We have to play this extremely in a far more sophisticated way. The point is not to make enemies out of the Yunus government. The point is to try and ensure that India still has a stake.
Right.
And India does, because please remember, when tomorrow Bangladesh wants trade, Bangladesh wants electricity, who's going to give it to them? China? Is it going to be America? No. Bangladesh must turn to India again and again. Who has benefited from the collapse of the textile business in Bangladesh? India. A large part of the business is coming to India. So Bangladesh has to turn to us. It's a lesson they will learn, like Maldives learned. They have to turn to India again and again. However, having said that, I say again that Hindus will be constantly persecuted in Bangladesh, and they will have to find refuge in India. There are no ifs and buts in my mind about this.
Well, our policy makers need to read the conversation that Yudhishthir had with Bhishma on Raj Dharma and the principles that need to be followed to ensure that there is a strong nation. Those lessons need to be revised. And most importantly, unless Bharat has a certain level of economic heft and strategic thinking or inclination where its posture is offensively defensive, we will not be able to save anybody. Forget persecution of religious minorities in the neighboring Islamic nations. We will not be able to save anybody, even ourselves. That's what it is. That's the status. Hindol Sen Gupta, thank you for your time. Dr. Ranganathan stays